A young female patient came to my practice as she was very unhappy with her diastema. I informed her of the options available for closing gaps. Possibilities included all ceramic restorations, for example veneers, or the non-invasive additive approach using composite. The decision was clearly in favor of non-invasive therapy, in other words, for direct closure of the gap using composite. I chose Venus Pearl as this material adapts perfectly to the natural shade situation and is equally as easy to process. The initial photo shows the situation after the gingivectomy had already been performed. As the teeth appeared to be very short, crown lengthening was carried out in order to achieve proportions more ideally suited to closing the gap. The following aims to describe closure of the anterior diastema between both central incisors. The Venus Pearl shade guide was used for shade selection and held directly up against the row of teeth. To determine the shade more accurately, I applied a variety of shades to the untreated dry tooth surface in different translucencies and opacities. I then light cured the material in order to be able to evaluate the final effect of the shade in each case. This was followed by fabrication of a mock-up, which I personally consider to be very important. On the one hand, it helps to select the shade in advance. In this case, I selected OLC, or opaque light chromatic, a highly chromatic shade that enabled this interdental space to be closed particularly effectively. And on the other hand, a mock-up allows me to show the patient quickly in advance what the filling will look like. Moreover, an impression can be taken of the mock-up situation using silicone and a silicone key fabricated that is extremely important for subsequent placement of the filling. The mock-up was then simply removed. The silicone key, which had been cut to size, was now verified to ensure that it fitted and was seated correctly. It should be seated without any gaps and acts as an aid when modeling the palatal area of the filling. The gingiva was withdrawn using a retraction cord. In this case, I was using a thicker cord, size 1, in order to push back the gingiva more strongly and to achieve better modeling of the emergence profile. In order to optimize the adhesive bond, the surface of the tooth was roughened using an oscillating diamond tool. The adjacent tooth was protected using Teflon tape and tooth 1-1 etched using I-bond etch. Ensure that the interdental areas are properly coated using the brush, including the slightly subgingival region up to the location of the retraction cord. I-bond etch must be left to act for 30 seconds and was then thoroughly rinsed off with water. I then applied the etch and rinse adhesive I-bond total etch and allowed it to act for 15 seconds. Air was blown onto the material until an even glossy surface was achieved. To facilitate modeling of the mesial contour, a transparent strip was placed into position and secured using the silicone key. I then applied Venus Diamond Flow in the opaque shade OM to the mesial area of the contour. In order to optimize the gradient of the mesial contour, I adjusted the strip to the required position using tweezers. I cured this layer for 20 seconds. Once the basic morphological shape had been modeled, I applied Venus Pearl in shade OLC in order to obtain a chromatic layer. After this, I applied Venus Pearl in shade CO in order to replicate the natural opalescence of the tooth. Furthermore, I applied CL in order to replicate the natural translucent layer. I verified the structure, specifically from a palatal perspective, in order to ensure a close fit in this area. For finishing, on the other hand, I used an oscillating instrument. The proximal area was finished using polishing strips. For final finishing and polishing, I used the two-step polishing system Venus Supra. For pre-polishing, the pink, and for high-gloss polishing, the gray polishers. In doing so, it is important to work with water spray and low pressure. I prepared the second incisor using the same treatment approach. Finally, I removed the cords and verified the protrusion and occlusion, and completed final polishing using Venus Supra. A high-gloss result was achieved that integrates well with the healthy tooth structure, both in terms of shade and morphology. Once treatment had been completed, the patient was able to see herself for the first time. She was visibly impressed by the result, as so little effort had been required to achieve such a lovely outcome. It can thus be confirmed that with the Venus Pearl shade system and systematic layering, highly aesthetic results can be achieved. When the initial situation is compared with the final photo, particularly in terms of the patient's demeanor, it is remarkable how a personality can change so dramatically within such a short space of time, in this case within 2 months. The patient now makes a more positive impression and has grown in confidence.